Beatriz, say hello to everyone, please.
Hello, good morning to everyone. How are you?
We're very well. We're sweltering here in the UK. Oh, I meant to tell you before we went live. I've got our two office dogs laid out behind the camera. So if I have to move them and interrupt this very important broadcast, I do apologise for that. But I think looking at the state of them, they're going to be there for a good 40-50 minutes, which is the length of talk we're going to have with Beatriz. Beatriz, can you just introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Yes, of course. So I am the director of KM0 Hub, which is an organization based in Valencia, Spain, and we back entrepreneurs working in the food system. So I'm delighted to be with all of you and share with you how we are seeing the future of food, exciting opportunities around here. So lovely to chat with you, Max.
Thank you very much. And we must just give a big shout out to the great team at Global Women Fresh, because Beatriz very kindly came on a previous broadcast with them. And I and all of you were so impressed with Beatriz, as well as the other panelists on that broadcast, that I was really keen to do a deep dive with Beatriz and find out more about KM0. So just for the purpose of mainly for the podcast, I just wanted to give a bit of an understanding as to Beatriz and also to KM0, and then we'll go for it and just see where this conversation goes, because I'm just going to read out one of the manifesto points for KM0. Our sector is the one with the greatest impact on the well-being of people on the planet. And I hate the jingoistic term, Beatriz, don't know about you, about mission statements, but that is such an impactful statement. So Beatriz, she is driven by passion for creating a delicious and resilient food future for all of us. She works with companies, organizations, and investors to push forward breakthrough solutions. She's traveled the globe, meeting food heroes, farmers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and policymakers, transforming the way that we eat. And at KM0 Food Innovation Hub, she oversees the strategy of the organization and manages the relations with partners and global opinion leaders of the squad. Through Ftalks Food Summit, the organization manages to bring together these voices to inspire change and create impactful synergies. The mission is to assist startups, corporations, institutions, and people operating in the food system to become future-proof through investment, partnerships, strategy, and the Fooduristic multimedia platform. Beatriz, what's your background? I've said this to so many people before. You could have done anything. You could have become a corporate beast as a lawyer or as an investment banker. You could have gone into, I don't know, something wild and wacky like corporate hospitality or the tourist sector. But you've dedicated your life to the food sector. What's your background? What's your journey prior to you becoming involved with being one of the main instigators of KM0? What's your story, please?
So my story is as many very turbulent and different one, right? It's not a linear career. So I started working in international relations. I was very passionate about understanding intercultural exchanges and how we could foster those relations. And I quickly saw how food was one of the main assets a country has to interact with others, and also for people to interact with each other. So Actually, my thesis was about food and its soft power. So in nation branding, in politics, in diplomacy, there is something like the hard power, which is economy and so on. And then there's the soft power. So trying to persuade people to be interested in you. So to make a country attractive, food is one of the main things we can work on, right? So that's something called gastrodiplomacy. So from working in international relations, I jumped in to the food sector because I saw the really beautiful power in studying how we could use something that is relatable to everyone to attract investment, to attract tourism, and so on. So that's how my journey started. But I always like to share the story of why I really got into hands-on working with food. And this happened when I was working at the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. I started doing a volunteering at an organization in Berlin called Berliner Tafel. They are known for receiving ugly produce and food that is about to be expired, and they distribute it in food banks. So I started volunteering there, and they started a project which was a school bus with a kitchen inside, and we would travel around schools in Berlin, and we would cook with children so that they became more familiarized with those types of foods, right? So that's when I really became fascinated about the world of food. I quit my job and I started thinking about how to do food-based learning with children. That's how it all started.
Fantastic. And then KM0, how did that come about?
Well, in between, I wanted to make that more scalable because I wanted to do food education accessible for many more children. I started doing a summer camp in my own house, in my own kitchen, where I could only host 10 children a day. And since I was aware of the grand challenges around the food system and how impactful this could be, I wanted to give access to many more children around the world. And this is how I came across with Future Food Institute, which is an organization based in Italy. And there we started a project called the Food Tech Kids Lab. And we also traveled around the world meeting many food heroes, which are actually people that are disrupting the food system with their innovations. They were from farmers to chefs to companies and so on. So we traveled around the world meeting these incredible, inspiring people. And when I came back, so after some years of traveling, learning about the workings of the whole food system, I wanted to go back home because even if I'm a globetrotter, I really love to be close to my family. And Spain is also a lovely country to work in food. So this is why a couple of years ago, I came back to Spain and started working for KM0. So I really loved the project here because it's backed by the food industry, which I thought was really important. We couldn't only research what the challenges and opportunities in food were, but we also needed to involve the food industry for them to incorporate and implement those solutions. So at KM0, what we are doing is we are investing with our own investment, but also with other food industries investment in food tech startups. And we are also creating a platform of discussion where we bring along many people. We have called it the KM0 Squad, which is shaped by more than 50 people around the world. So for example, the first person who did lab-grown meat, the person who assisted Obama in the strategy against childhood obesity, very relevant and inspiring, impactful people. They're part of this advisory board for us to call it in some way, even if it's not officially an advisory board, but they are the people that guide us. They are like our light that shows us what the real complications, what the real large-scale problems are. And also they give us some hope because they bring along some best practices. They share with us some startups, some companies who are doing outstanding work in tackling those problems. So I'm extremely lucky to do this as my day-to-day job because my work is to learn every day about what we can do better to continue eating what we love eating.
And the timing of this is so ridiculously fortuitous. If there's one thing that we've picked up over the last year, 18 months, is that if the world is going to be a better place, we have to eat on a more healthy basis. My daughter, who's 17, she sent me a TikTok video this morning of a chap. I don't actually know who it was, but it's some UK based food expert. I need to research who he is, but he was basically making the 3 predictions as to what's going to happen in the food sector in the next 10 years. And the first one was that there'll be no dairy industry, no milk being produced in the next 10 to 15 years, because we'll be eating, drinking, consuming more plant-based milk, such as soya. Meat production will be down by a half. And the third element will be that there will be more meat substitutes grown in lab conditions. So I'm fascinated that so she's looking to do philosophy, and she's and politics, and so she keeps on challenging me as to what are my connections within the food sector doing. So I was really keen to show this recording of yourself, Beatriz, so she can find out what KM0 are doing. The seminal moment that if we do want to be in a better place health-wise, we need to eat better, and we need to eat more fresh food. Am I correct in this thinking? Is this the raison d'etre for KM0? Are you looking to be noisy, disruptive, to make that change for everyone on a global basis?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we want to understand how we can do things better, and we want to share it with the community so that they change their practices, but mainly the food industry, because that's where we are going to gain more impact, because in the end, they choose what's on the supermarket. Of course, the consumer has their vote with their supermarket choices. But in the end, if we influence the food industry to make some changes, the impact can be exponential. So in regards to what you mentioned about those predictions about the food future, we believe we cannot predict what is going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball, and we don't see how we are going to be living in 15 years. But we do know is that there are different possible futures, so we can support some actions that bring us closer to our preferred future. This means that some of the statements you made around eating less dairy product or eating lab-grown meat and so on, those are only going to be true if we make some choices and we take action now, from every level, also from a legal perspective, from a technology perspective, from a consumer point of view. So there are many interdependent actions that will influence what future we want to live in. So that's what KM0 is trying to do. We are trying to design the type of future we would like to live in, and we are supporting the entrepreneurs, institutions, people who are bringing us closer to that preferred future. And what we really would love to see is a future in which everyone has access to nutrition. That's our main goal.
Well said. And just in the UK, there's been last week was released our national food strategy, and this was a project, a document that was had been a year in creation, and the overwhelming demand from that food strategy is that we need to tax sugar and salt and prescribe veg, and that tax of sugar and salt of the more inappropriate food products, that money would be used to extend free school meals and support better diets. And in the UK, that's now going to the House of the Parliament for a white paper in a very short period of time, in 6 months, to hopefully drive this forward, to look to tax high sugar foods and high salt foods, so that we can try and reverse the health decline that we got in the UK, and that's been replicated across the world. And I was trying to not propose you an emotive question, because I was going to say to you, do you think there's good people and do you think there's evil people within the food sector? But to me, in some respects, it's money. That some of these bigger food companies, they're driven by money, they're driven by shareholders wanting the return of investment. Hence why we have the likes of energy drinks that are promoted as but by sports people as good for us. But you and I both know that if a child is having 2 cans of energy drink for breakfast, that's not going to make them a sports star. That's going to make them a diabetic in a very, very short period of time. What can we collectively do? What can KM0 do to try and get over these speed bumps of some of these businesses that, for all the right reasons, are trying to do good internally because they're trying to maximize their return for their shareholders, but they're not doing good to us. If anything, they're slowly killing us because they're promoting bad products. Is there anything that KM0 can do to assist this, to push through this healthy eating regime, so our children, our chubby middle-aged men, instead of eating sugary things, are eating fresh fruit and veg and other healthier foods? What can KM0 do to help that, to change that tide of unhealthy eating?
Mm-hmm. So you tapped on a very important point, which is children, future generations. We believe that if we can spend $1 on something, €1, £1, we have to spend it on education, because education will change those choices. And we are designing a program called Gastrogenius. And in this educational program, we are teaching children through food. So it's a food-based learning method. And we believe that we have to work on raising awareness. So first of all, the consumer, when they go to the supermarket and look at the options, they have to understand what's out there. And then on the other side, what can companies do? Since many more consumers will be more demanding in terms of getting access to healthier and more nutritious products, they will have to shift some of their portfolio because they want to reach that new consumer that is interested in those products. And on the other side, you mentioned taxing. So I believe humans sometimes need those types of sanctions or taxations limits in order to do good. We see that in many other sectors. So I believe that's a positive change that is not going to be easy, because lobbying is very strong across every industry in the food sector. So it's not going to be easy to introduce those types of taxing, but we do need to do like a systemic change. We need to take into account who are all the stakeholders that are making choices in this chain, and how do we make them take better decisions for them and for the planet.
And Beatriz, that's what I was keen to get to on Beanstalk, because our sector of fresh produce internationally is not that good at promoting itself. We need noisy and disruptive people and businesses like yourself and KM0 to sort of bang this drum about the difference that can be made. And this whole point about these larger food companies, I compare it, say like the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry was taxed to the point that the consumer realized that, well, why should I be spending whatever the figure is, 20 euros on a packet of cigarettes, when actually it's doing me no good? I'll just give it up. And there's a direct comparison here with the motor industry. That the motor industry fought for a while to stop the advance of electric cars, but now they can see it's the future, and now they're changing their structures internally, with the likes of Shell stating that they're going to be carbon neutral by whatever the figure is, the year is 2030 or 2040. They've realized that the consumer behavioral change is going against them, and they've either got to get with it, or they're going to lose out. They're going to become Blockbuster of old. And I hope, especially with the likes of yourself and your colleagues at KM0, the food companies who are currently promoting very sugary foods, very salt high foods, they will see that there's a change coming, and they've got to change. And the likes of Unilever and Nestle are already doing that. They're on a scouting mission globally, trying to find fresh food companies that they can invest in, because they know that at some point in the future they're not going to have the income coming in from the high sugar, the high fatty foods. So in some respects, the sector is coming towards you. How can we accelerate it? I completely agree with you on the child education side. So the issue always is money. Is that the likes of some of the produce companies that they deal with, they make so little margin from the retailers that they can't create big brands like the energy drinks or some of the other foods company. Is there some magic dust that we can learn from you and KM0 as to how we can accelerate this change to get the consumer, whether it be the kids or whether it be the families, to eat better? Have you got some magic dust for us?
I don't think it's magic, but we are trying with our resources and with the other food industries and partners that believe in this project. We are trying to map out who is doing good, who would be a positive influencer in this this value chain, and we are trying to support them. So, for example, a food startup that is putting forward technology to understand better the land and to make our cultivation, our farming easier and more efficient. We are working with a company called Biome Makers, and they have developed this this easy technology for farmers, for them to understand how to detect the microbiome in their soil and make better decisions. So I think whomever has investment capital needs to be put into food. That's what I would really hope for.
Yeah, and there's a fantastic example. At the last recession, whenever that was 10, 15 years ago, there was a rush of investors to invest into agribusiness, into farmland globally, because they saw it as a safe haven. What we've picked up on other broadcasts that we've done about investing in fresh produce is that those investors are looking again, because of the pandemic recessional period. They want to invest into agribusiness, but they also want to invest into fresh produce, fresh foods, because they can see that that's going to create there's this consumer change to eat better. And it's not just investing in 2,000 hectares of avocados in Peru. It's also all the infrastructure that you're involved with in respect of all the ag tech that's coming along. So that's the exciting thing, isn't it? There's so many different elements coming along in this new ecosystem of food, and it's so thrilling to see a younger generation to not chase the dollar and to actually get involved in this sector to look to do good. So just on that side, the companies that you're looking to assist, to mentor, to invest in, what, if it's okay to ask, what sort of companies are they? What sort of companies have you been involved with?
Mm-hmm. So in very broad terms, they always have to have a positive impact in the health of the planet and people. Wow. But being more specific, the type of companies we have invested in and are interested in have to do with packaging, for example. It's one of the main hot topics we are hearing about these days. So there are companies like Notpla, is a Spanish company, but also active in the UK, in case you're interested in looking it up. And they have developed with algae a different type of material to substitute plastic. So, for example, in the marathon in London, they gave out these little balls with water inside to substitute the water bottles. Have you seen that? Yes,
I have. Yeah.
Those type of companies are part of our ecosystem, and we try to support them in any way we can. We're also looking into protein alternatives. You mentioned the shift towards more plant-based milks or beverages. Yeah. We see many opportunities within that. So it's plant-based, but there's also cultured, you also pointed out, there's also fermented foods. There are so many options within that scope. And we're very excited to see many entrepreneurs doing good products, because what we are seeing now is a revolution of protein alternatives, because in the past they weren't a real alternative because they tasted terrible, and also the ingredients were too many, too artificial. So we don't want to go for plant-based if it's unhealthier. So we're looking into healthy plant-based alternatives. Also solutions for the general well-being. So we think that in the future, everyone is going to have a more personalized nutrition. So we're going to be able to understand what our little microbes need in our organism, and we're going to be able to feed them a diet that brings us to our full potential, because we're super lucky for being alive, but we can live better, we can live happier with more energy if we understand what our body needs. But of course, there's always going to be indulgence. That's not negative. That's why the area we are researching is well-being. We don't call it health. We call it well-being because we believe that also some indulgent foods can also bring us some well-being when consumed occasionally. So the shifts that we are seeing is, for example, a change in the frequency of consuming those types of indulgent or less healthy foods. So we don't have to eliminate them from our diet. We just have to consume them with less frequency. So I don't know if you've looked into the planetary diet from the Eat Lancet report. I really agree with everything said on that report and on the type of diet they are proposing, because it's not restrictive. It incorporates all types of foods, and they are just trying to invite us to consume more colorful, more fresh, and more variety in the dishes we eat on a daily basis.
It's so exciting, isn't it? That's if we, I got to admit to something. I signed up to Noon because I was really fascinated by the business model. That American-based app. It doesn't proclaim itself as a diet app. It's a well-being app, but fundamentally it's all about losing weight, and it managed to gain half a billion US in funding. Because they could see the longer term potential for it, and actually being involved with that, it's lovely. It's a really encouraging thing to do, and it looks to get yourself mentally set to make changes. We'll have to have another broadcast in 2 months to see if it's actually made any difference to me. But I'm trying to eat as many greens as possible. One thing I was really pleased that you mentioned was about plant-based foods, because we're seeing a lot of companies. I gave you that example about the oil companies trying to get into electric. We're seeing a lot of food companies trying to get into plant-based, but all they're doing is just over-processed, as he sort of intimated, and highly packaged. And they're just trying to ride. To me, it's to the point of greenwashing. They're just trying to ride this wave of consumer change, and think by sticking a plant-based sticker on it and claiming it's got XYZ on it, when actually when you look through the ingredients, it's just as bad as a Pop-Tart. I hope that the consumer will not be blind to that, and especially with the likes of your influence, to not get involved in investments like that. So only get involved in plant-based choices that are going to do good. So are we positive? Are we positive, Beatriz, that with all of us looking to collaborate to make this change, that we can make this change, that we can make the planet a better place to be?
We would need a lot of alliances coming together, and we would need a lot of collaboration to do this at the speed that is required. So we do need to push forward an acceleration in the transformation of the food system. And we need to do it through collaborations from different people that are putting different parts of the puzzle together in order to be able to do this collaborative effort. We can't do this on our own, but this is why KM0 started this platform in which we incorporate all of these different players, our KM0 squad, in which we foster discussions to spark inspiration on how we can put forward innovation. So for example, CRISPR technology, gene editing, which is very close to the sector you work with, we believe is a positive change for the food industry, but it's got very bad press for consumers. So for example, how is going to CRISPR technology to influence and improve our system? We need to make those big important questions and bring to the table the people that can make small different choices to go towards our preferred future.
Yep. Well done. And coincidentally, it's this year, 2021, is the United Nations Year of Fruit and Veg Consumption. Do you find that it is, with this collaboration that you're engaging with and looking to engage with, do you find it's better to collaborate with one-off individuals who have a platform, who have a voice, and create the conversation with them? Or do you find it's better to have political alliances with the likes of the United Nations and other trade bodies? Or is it a mixture of both? Or are you still trying to find your way?
We think every effort is necessary. So we are trying to collaborate with companies, with institutions, with the community. So we can foster that systemic change. So at the moment, what we are doing is working in three separate lines of action. The first one is supporting entrepreneurs with our investment or with our communities. We help these positive influencers scale up and really go into the market and survive in that very complex world. The second line of action is supporting companies, bigger companies. You mentioned some of them. They have a big influence in putting up products in the market. So we help them see what are the big challenges and big problems we are facing so that they are faster in making those changes in their own organizations. And the third line of action is the one regarding the whole community. So I mentioned our Gastrogenius lab with children, for example, our annual event, Ftalks. So all of these actions are looking into how can we inform and raise awareness amongst the community about what we have at stake and what we can do to improve the status quo.
Yeah. And what's fantastic about your model is the whole educational piece, as well as advising, mentoring new businesses that are coming into the sector. The new businesses coming into the sector, just give you a direct example that I've always been slightly concerned about, vertical farming. I remember there was a quote from Rabobank, November 2019, and they stated that 90% of the people involved in vertical farming, so this is companies that had set up, had gained investment, 90% of the companies involved in vertical farming would not be in it in 3 years' time. They would have burnt out of cash. And we're seeing, just as per that example I gave about funds looking to race into agribusiness and looking to race into fresh food. There's also a lot of, it sounds like I've been pompous, but there's a lot of naivety that we see, that people think coming into this sector is going to be relatively easy. But as you've indicated, it's hugely complex. So just to give some examples, we've seen on the vertical farming side of things, companies coming in, gaining 2, 3, 5 million euros worth of investment, and they just assume that when they get set up, that the likes of a major European or UK retailer will come knocking on the door wanting to do business with them, and will give them 40% margin for their product, and they'll be allowed to have a brand. And when you try and politely explain to them that none of that's going to happen, they find it very disappointing, and they think we're being very, very negative. And that's why I think you and KM0 are very good, because you can steer those individuals, those entrepreneurs, those investors right from the get-go. So there isn't all that wasted time and energy in trying to duplicate something that people are already in and perhaps experts at, whilst you can give them that steer. So I suppose you have to have some quite hard conversations, do you, with potential food companies coming in, to give them that steer that, no, this won't work for these reasons, but why don't you try this, because it will work for these reasons? Would that be correct?
Of course, that's what I think is super differential for us, which is we have the food industry that is backing us. We have five companies that are owned by a family business, but they have a lot of presence in the Spanish market. So they really know how to build businesses with thousands of employees and how to struggle and fight in the market, how to build a production plant, how to scale up a product, how to talk to the lobbying in the European Union, and so on. So we have all that knowledge, which is very unique. I would say very few accelerators, incubators have that industrial knowledge. And that is the really unique expertise we bring to these young companies. So as you said, we have to have very hard conversations also, because since we put a lot of effort and time in understanding the food system, we are very realistic in the sense that even if we are saying that protein alternatives are a huge trend, they're hype, and they're going to gain a market share. But if we look at the numbers, the reality is, for example, in Spain, 80% of people eat meat twice a week at least. So if we see the numbers, and on a global scale, even more so, for example, in developing countries, we see the rise of meat consumption. We need to be realistic when we bring a product into the market. We don't need to listen to trends and hypes and so on. We need to be realistic with what the market wants, what is going to be realistic in terms of pricing, scaling up, and so on. So that's really beautiful, the fact that we can give that strategic advice. And this is why many companies, they approach us, because we are a strategic investor. We don't only inject capital, but we really give them advice on what decisions to make along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful. There's to give the opposing case. There's a fresh produce business in the UK that recently got bought out 2 years ago, and speaking to one of their main directors, they have this great frustration because every month they have to report back to the investors, and all it is about is the bottom right hand corner of that Excel spreadsheet as to whether the business is making money or not, and if it's not, what are they going to do about making money. And they're getting no input. All they're getting is negativity, because these funders, they just want their money. What if you look at yourself? That's why I've been so impressed with KM0. That well, you care. It's this element about looking to do good by the planet and holding the hand of these companies that you're looking to collaborate and invest with to take them on that journey. So I think that's a unique point for yourself. Where do you want KM0 to be 3, 4, 5 years down the line?
So our aim is to be the most relevant think tank in Spanish language globally. We want to be the referent when everyone looks up what is the future of food going to be. We want them to look up to us and listen to what we say, because we have people that are backing us, that really know and are doing things to create that better future. So we want companies and startups to look up to us and want to join forces to foster that rapid transformation of the food system. So we are working towards that, of course. But as you said, it's not easy. It sounds like a very fun job. It is, but on the other side, I would say in the food industry, only 1 out of 10 products work in the market. Even if they've done all of the tests they've done earlier and so on, once they come into the market, they cannot survive. So we are trying to increase that rate, right, of success. And we are seeing companies, for example, Taste-Wise, and what they are doing is with predictive intelligence, they are trying to predict what is going to work in the market. So we are trying to help people make more informed decisions to be able to survive and have success in the market. And we are aware, I think this is a very important thing, that it's all risk investment. We don't aim at having, well, we would love to have all of our companies being successful in the market, but we know that we are doing this, as you said, out of passion, out of conviction, but we are aware that probably 50% of our investment will not be successful in the future. So this job really requires commitment and conviction.
Well done. And the businesses that you would like to potentially assist, are you looking just in Spain, in Europe, in the UK, internationally? What sort of companies would you like to approach you? What sort of individuals would you like to approach you on a European or a global basis?
Mm-hmm. So the levels at which we help those startups, those companies are different. So if we want to really help the companies scale up and we need to be close to their production facility, for example, we prefer it to be in Spain because they can talk to us in a day-to-day basis. We have many entrepreneurs that are working at our offices, for example. Yeah, so since we are working in an industry that is tangible, we're not working with technology and software that can be dislocalized. We need the touch and the access to the company, to the entrepreneurs and so on. So for that purpose, if we are really going to invest in the company, we're really going to support it 100%, we need it to be in Spain. But the truth is that we are open to listening to other projects from around the world and seeing what ways we can help them. So for example, we have our annual report of best practices, which is called Fooduristic. And in this report, we collect global best practices and startups and companies and so on, and share what they are doing. And then we share this book with everyone. So this gives them a lot of visibility, and we have many contacts from around the world, also thanks to our KM0 squad. So we have in there, for example, the global sustainability lead from Unilever, from Danone, and from other companies. So even if we are not 100% working and investing in those startups, I think we can help global startups in some way through our platform.
Fantastic. And collaboration. I'm going to read out one of your statements of your website. Everyone look at the KM0 website. It's one of the best websites in the sector. But one of the bits that you mentioned in there is about collaboration. We love collaboration. I just can't understand businesses who are very siloed in their thinking and want to keep everything to their chest because they don't want to share it with competitors. My view is if we share as much as we can, if we can collaborate as much as we can all get to a better place, make a better planet, and a far faster means. Collaboration, to use our platform, to use our contacts. Who else would you like to collaborate with? How can we help you? How can our network help you?
We are open to collaborate with any member of your network, be it a young project, as we said, if we can assist them in some ways. Also talking to the companies that are part of your network to invite them to be part of our summit, for example, or our investors club, because our main objective is to support as many people that are doing things right in the food system. And we can't do this on our own. We can't do this with our own capital. We don't have enough. We receive many projects, many startups and entrepreneurs that are looking into doing good things in the food sector. But what we have created is an investors club formed by food companies, and we present opportunities, investment opportunities, so that others can also help them. And it may not be capital investment, it may be time. So for example, if we have a startup, a project that can work in the fresh produce industry, then we can reach out to you and ask for your advice of how do you guide this project in making the next steps, or what contacts would be useful for that project.
I'm so impressed by KM0. I do think that you will be setting up satellite offices in when I posted the question about where you're looking to be 3, 4, 5 years down the line. To me, it'd be logical if you had an office in the UK, an office in America, to spread your reach. But that is up to yourself and your other colleagues within KM0. It would be such a shame to just limit you to beautiful Spain when your business model is obviously working very well. That's I think we need to see it on an international basis. I just wanted to wrap up and just read this statement from your website, because I showed it to the team in the office, and they said it was one of the best statements that they've seen on a website in recent years. So our sector is the one with the greatest impact on the well-being of people and the planet. This is why we know, I'm going to do that again. This is why we know we have a great responsibility. We need new answers to address new challenges. The main one being feeding a growing population with healthy diets from sustainable food system. This entails transforming the way we produce, distribute, consume, and revalue food. The good news is that the industry has already taken action. As we talked about, there's a lot to do. This presents an opportunity for entrepreneurs. Instead of thinking about what has to change, our ambition is to clear up what to do with the basis of the actions that have been made, that are developing, and that are having a social and economic impact. We believe we can only face the challenges collaborating and investing in and by innovation. KM0 identifies, connects, and encourages the collaboration between people and initiatives that are driving the change. Madam, anything to say on the back of that?
Yes, you just pointed out that we need to do more open innovation. So the reason why we were created was to foster open innovation between those small young initiatives with a lot of potential but lack of resources, connect them with the food industry that has a lot of knowledge, more resources, but doesn't have the innovation. So we need to be the connector, the facilitator between those two very different worlds. So that's what we are trying to do. And our wish is that in the future, everyone will be able to eat tasty food that is healthy for the planet and for themselves. And when we say people, we want everyone. So we want this to be an equitable food system. And lately we have been talking more about resilience. I think it's a very important and interesting concept at a personal level. Know how to be resilient as a person, but also our food systems need to be so and live in harmony with the planet and with people. We are a bit disconnected from that world.
KM0, a force for good. And just before we wrap up, what is your favorite fresh produce?
Avocado at the moment. So it depends on the season, of course. Now in Spain, we have delicious peaches, for example, which I love. Melon, watermelon. So a lot of the fruits in Spain in this season of the year are so fragrant and delicious. So I don't think it's a sacrifice to shift towards more plant-based diets when those plants are so delicious.
And just to wrap up, one thing I've learned over the last year, I keep on going on about branding, that fresh produce should have brands, but so many of the people that we've had on have said taste. All we need to do is for a child to taste a scrummy, an enjoyable tomato, or as you said, a delicious Spanish peach or melon. And then everyone is hooked and is hooked for good. And just before we wrap up, I'm just going to say thank you to Claudia, your colleague, and we'll put all the links that she's she's very kindly put on this Zoom onto likes of LinkedIn and Facebook, so everyone can see the likes of your squad and find out more about the your upcoming food summit. Thank you very much for your time. If it's okay, we'd love to stay close with KM0, with yourself, and to see how we and our Beanstalk network can further collaborate with you. But you've been so impressive. As I say, you and your colleagues are a real force for good, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you for having me, Max. It was a real pleasure. I love this. I'm going to go and eat my peach.
I'm going to go join you. I'm going to go down to my favorite greengrocers and try and find some Spanish peaches as well.
Sounds good. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.